the basics of marriage. This is talking about setting the right foundations for marriage, so that you can also marry well. And joining me on the show, I have Ernest Wamboye, who, yani, this has been so long overdue. I'm so grateful to have him here on set. Karibu sana.
Thanks, Joyce. Asante. Yes.
Anyway, this is the day.
Yes.
This is the day that
we're
the
finally
Lord has
here.
Karibu sana to Full Circle with
Thank
Joyce.
you.
If you don't know Ernest Wamboye, he is an author, he's a blogger, he's a relationship, can I call you a relationship coach?
Yes, you can.
Yeah, he's talked to lots of young men. He has a forum, Boy Meets Girl. A fantastic forum, really, for all of you who are single or in the dating space, or even just in marriage and really wanting to understand and improve your relationship. Be sure to check him out. What's your Insta or Twitter handle?
At @Wamboye.
At @Wamboye. I promise
Yes.
you guys, you're going to find some good stuff right
Yes.
there. But for now, we have him on the show. And like I mentioned, we want to talk about basics, setting the right foundations to marry well. He actually has a book titled exactly that. And this is it right there. And you wrote this with your wife.
Yes.
Waturi, is this your first sort of publication with your wife?
Yes, it is. She contributed. There's a section for the ladies.
Is that why her name is in smaller print?
Yes. I mean, those are just the rules of publishing. But she contributed a section, and I wanted to acknowledge her. You know, she kept saying it's a small part, but I said no, but it's still a contribution.
Well
so I need to have your name there.
Well done to you. So when we talk about setting the right foundations in marriage, what are we really talking about?
We're talking about the prerequisite needs for a man and a woman to consider before they walk down the aisle. The things they need to think about critically before they make the decision to be with someone for the rest of their lives. All right. And I think if you look at our society lately, there's been so many cases that show that this is not happening. I mean, the violent murders that have been happening recently, both for the unmarried and the married, the number of abusive relationships. So we're asking ourselves, what's going wrong? Many people think, things went wrong. But we tend to say things don't go wrong, things often start wrong. So we are keen on helping people start well. And if you start well, the chances of building on a firm foundation and having a successful marriage are pretty higher, as opposed to just marrying anyhowly and then hoping things work out.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Absolutely. And guys, the SMS line is still 22999. Let me know, what would you say is a foundation, an important foundation for marriage? Again, 22999. You can also reach us on our social media platforms. That's at Switch TV KE on Instagram and at Switch TV Kenya on Facebook and Twitter. Get typing, get clicking. I'd love to hear from you and shout you out in just a bit. Now, Ernest, the other day on this show, we were actually talking about what makes men tick. We were talking about what makes women tick. And a lot of guys have questions about, I guess, social dominance within a marriage and what makes a man, as you've already pointed out, these examples of, you know, someone being aggrieved about something and then you think it's okay to, you know, pick up a panga or whatever it is and take someone's life. What is happening there? Where is that broken?
All right. So in the men's section in the book, we talk about how many men have a misplaced identity. And by that we mean that many men don't understand what makes them men. The world has given them a very false, a very misconstrued idea of masculinity. And so we call it the 3 Gs, okay? We call it girls, gold, glory, okay?
Girls,
gold and glory. So what that basically means is women, money, power. All right. And so many men are conditioned by our pop culture to think that, one, I am a man when I've got female attention, when I can attain and retain female attention. The more females I have, the more I can attain and retain their attention, the more manly I am. It is portrayed in the music videos. It is portrayed in the movies, you know, and this man is perceived to be the manlier of the rest, you know, the manliest, you know, and is perceived to be the one who seems to be, you know, the one who's in charge, you know. So girls, and so men with that kind of identity start thinking that the only way I can prove my masculinity is by having dominance over women, is by being in control, by women bending over backwards to do what I want, you know. And this is also portrayed in lots of pop culture. If you look, like when I mentioned the movies and the movies and the music videos, you realize that the women in those films, the women in those pieces of entertainment are not real women. The real women don't behave like that. They are not that subservient, you know. And so that sends a message to the real man out there, and he thinks this is what a woman should be. So when a woman rejects you and you realize it's not playing according to the script, you get upset because you want to be dominant. Then there's gold. You think that I am a man when I've got lots of money, when I can actually flaunt it and show everyone that I am the one who's financially in charge. I am the one who can dictate how things run. And finally, glory, that when I've got social dominance, when I stand out, when I am the best, I'm the funniest, I'm the what. And all these things have a warped view of masculinity. Right. Men who believe that will end up making wrong relationship moves. They will hurt the women in their lives, they will hurt themselves, and they will keep wondering, why is it no matter how hard I try to fit into this mold of masculinity, my relationships keep failing?
Ooh, if you're a man and you're listening to that, if you're after gold,
gold, glory.
Girls, gold, or glory.
Yeah.
Your relationships are more likely to fail.
Exactly. So we tell them, you need to ask yourself, what is the real thing that actually makes you a man? What is the thing that defines your masculinity in a very positive way? And we tell them it must start with the ultimate G, and we call that God. Okay. Right. A man must ask himself where he came from. Where he came from, where he's going, his identity. He must be rooted in where he came from, where he is, and where he's going. Right. And you cannot establish that apart from consulting your creator. This is a tablet. If I want to find out how this thing works, I must go to the manufacturer. I check out the box, check out how it's made. I can try and fumble around with it, but I'll mess it up. Sure. If you go back to the manual of life, if you go back to the creator and what he says about you, you'll start to discover certain things about you that the culture is not telling you, and you'll start having fulfilling relationships as a man. And the women in your lives will be happier because you're now living out the way God wants you to live.
Right.
Yeah.
All right. So let's talk then about structure and accountability in marriage. Yeah. When you're talking about foundations, perhaps this is one of the things that people get wrong. Yeah. And it's so, the spectrum for it is quite wide, even in terms of finances. Yes. It could be that you're just that guy or that chick who decides to hang out with your ex all the time, and you don't think that's not going to cause any issues. You know what I mean? Talk to us about structure and accountability in marriage and why that discussion is so fundamental to a successful marriage.
All right. So Joyce, you're married, right?
Yes.
I would ask you, if you misbehave in your marriage today, who calls you out? You know, that's a very important question, and that's what you're challenging couples. Telling them, okay, so you're married, fine. When you misbehave, who calls you out? If today I tell my wife, hey, I found a campus girl, she likes me, I like her, we've sorted each other out, so you keep the babies, keep the ministry, I'm done, you know, and I'll go off. I can tell you there are at least 5 men who I can even name who will show up wherever I am. They will stop what they're doing. They will leave their workplaces. They will leave their board meetings. They will come to where I am and tell me, you stop that foolishness right now.
Smack some sense into you.
Exactly. And many married people don't have that. Right. You have a best couple who only plays the role on your wedding day. Yeah. And that's it. They are there to dress up in suits and nice dresses, but they don't play the role after that. What happens when this man starts to misbehave? What happens when this woman starts to misbehave? What happens when you start to prioritize your job over your spouse? What happens when you don't make time for your kids? Who calls you out? And so in that section of the book, we challenge people to think about 3 levels of accountability. Number 1, people older than you, people more mature than you, people who can actually speak to you without you getting offended, people who you respect, people who can call you out. Okay. And then we've got peer accountability. People who are, let's say you got married around the same time, you possibly around the same age bracket, people who can share the same challenges, you know. You can go and say, hey, by the way, man, I'm really struggling with the chores. I don't know what to do, you know. The kids are overwhelming me. Hey, you know what? I don't know what she wants anymore. I've tried this. We've been married for 7 years. Yeah. Peer accountability. People who can talk some sense into you. And then finally, people who are younger than you. I believe that every married couple needs people who can look up to them. It keeps you on your toes. For people to say, hey, I just want to be exactly like you. And then you look at your life and you're like, okay, do you really want to be exactly like me? Yeah. So accountability. Who calls you out when you misbehave? Wow. When couples don't have that, a lot of misbehavior goes on. You know, a man says, I'll do what I want. I am a man. No, you do not do what you want.
Right.
You have people who call you out. A woman says, hey, I don't need no man. I don't need no family. You need someone who calls you and tells you, sit down, shut up, listen. That is wrong. You know? Yes. So in that section of the book, we really talk about how men and women need to humble themselves and put themselves under, first of all, God's accountability, but secondly, under people's accountability. People's accountability. That is very, very important. Yeah.
So Nilwambia, the conversation is long overdue. I'm very grateful to have Ernest Ramboy here in studio with us on Full Circle with Joyce, this Relationship Tuesday. Again, our SMS line is 22999. Do send in your questions for him concerning the basics of marriage. Do you guys have the right foundations for your relationships? What has been your experience? You can also reach us at Switch TV Kenya on Facebook. Now, you also have talked about girl myths in your book. Tell us what that's about.
Say that again.
Girl myths, like myths about like women.
Yes. So that's a section that my wife really put a lot of her energy into it. You know, I really wish she'd be here to talk about it. But my wife, when I proposed to my wife, I bought her a book by Jerusha Clark. It's called When I Get Married. And basically Jerusha Clark in her book highlights myths that women tend to believe before they get married. They start thinking, oh, you know, when I get married, I'll never be lonely. When I get married, everything will be fantastic. My husband will always be this knight in shining armor. Right. I mean, you're a lady. I think you could maybe relate to some of those. And Jerusha Clark just burst these bubbles in a very loving way and saying, okay, you can actually be married and very lonely. You can actually be married and, you know, want to be single. You can be married and wish you had more freedom. You can, and so in that section, what my wife does is that she helps young ladies say, okay, what do you expect out of marriage? Fantastic. Those are good expectations. Now, leverage them against the reality. Okay? Are they expectations that need to be edited, need to be thrown out, or need to be accepted? Some people have got low expectations. And so we look at some myths that women believe. And so maybe I'll just pick one of them, you know, saying, when I get married, I'll never be lonely. You know, many people think that marriage will complete them, that marriage will actually give them this soul satisfaction, that now their lives are complete, never ever lack anything, my life will be fantastic. And you realize that that's not the case. That you and your husband can actually go through tough times. And there are tough times when you don't see his face anymore. You know, he's left. When it goes to work, you breathe a sigh of relief, like, oh, thank God he's gone. And I think even the same for the men, you know. At times you get to think, who do I want to talk to? You know, several issues in our upbringing may even make it worse. Maybe someone told you, oh, don't speak bad about your marriage, you know. So you sit there in silence, you're thinking, who do I talk to? You don't want to expose your woman, you don't want to expose your man. And you can go through some of those really trying times. You know, and you must have the fortitude to understand that, hey, these seasons in marriage will be there. You know, Gary Chapman calls it a winter season in marriage in his book, The 4 Seasons of Marriage. And you must have the fortitude to deal with the winter seasons and the fall seasons to understand that, hey, not everything will be rosy. You can have an overly romanticized view of marriage, and that could, you know, bring a lot of destruction. You could have a very, you know, a very humanistic view of marriage where things will always work, and then life happens. You know, and so in that section of the book, we try and tell people, manage your expectations and manage them in a healthy way. Let's say, God forbid, your spouse got into an accident and they were permanently paralyzed. What would you do? You need to really understand what your vows mean. You need to understand what marriage will be like, that it will not always be joy and fun. There will be some dark times, and it requires 2 mature people who've said, for better or for worse, they're going to stick through that. Wow. Ernest,
we're going to take a break right now. But guys, when we come back, we're going to continue our discussion with Ernest, even be taking some of your questions. Again, the SMS line is 22999, and I'll be reading comments from Facebook. That's at Switch TV Kenya. This and much more as we continue discussing the basics of marriage, getting back to the basics of marriage and setting yourselves up well for marriage. This and much more right here after the break. All right, guys, welcome back to the show. This is Full Circle with Joyce. With me, Joyce Mwandi Waihiga. Asanteni sana for your company and for watching. I want to read some of the feedback that has come in, again, at Switch TV Kenya on Facebook and at Switch TV KE on Instagram, and you can also SMS us. That's 22999. So on Facebook, Simonza, I can't say your last name. But you say, I like the conversation. The guy is good on love affairs. Congratulate him. And you say you also like the dressing code. Thank you very much. That's Simonza Kelsey Yoon. I hope I've said that correctly. And then Nora Tina, you say, wow, you've helped me to solve my relationship problem. Thank you for watching. Kevin Konde, you say, Joyce, the show is dope. Thanks to our guest. I'm Kevin, tuned in from Nyeri Chanya village. Asante sana. Justine Ondiek, you say you're tuned in via Azam, watching us from Mombasa. Tunashukuru pia. And maybe I'll just read one SMS here before I get to we continue with the segment rather. Hello Joyce, ni Maureen kutoka Githurai 44. Nimependezwa sana na hiyo show. Asante sana for watching as well. I'm going to be reading some more of your feedback as we go along. But first, again, we're joined by Ernest Wamboy, who has a book here, Basics like Bay, and then say, I love that. Yeah. Setting the foundations to marry well. And I want to read an excerpt, okay, from his book. This is page 71. It's the chapter about being the one, okay? And this is what he says. When we focus on finding the one and not becoming the one, we overlook our own insecurities and weaknesses. That line alone, really struck me. That so many times we're just so focused on, are they meeting this tick? Do they have this tick? What is our own checklist?
Yes.
You know, for you as a bride or for you as a wife, what is your own checklist and are you meeting it? Let me read this again. So when we focus on finding the one and not becoming the one, we overlook our own insecurities and weaknesses. In fact, those very insecurities and weaknesses end up making us repeat the same mistakes we made in old relationships because we always imagine we are the victims of the exes. Being the one means realizing that you could be the villain in someone's story. This takes humility and teachability. But if you simplistically believe that you were meant to be, you will only look at how this person met your list at the start of the relationship and how they don't meet it right now after the breakup. Ooh, deep. Very deep and very well written. What is this idea of being the one and of meant to be? You know, I mean, do you believe in love at first sight? Like, do you believe in love at first sight?
Do I believe in love at first sight? Wow. No, I think you grow in love. Yes. I think you can be infatuated at first sight, but I think you grow in love. You know, you get to know someone, you get to experience them, get to understand them, get to see them, you know, in their ups and downs, and then get to decide whether you can live with that.
Because love is a choice.
It is a choice.
To love even the person when they're not doing right by
exactly. And you know, that's actually when you truly know that you love them, that you see their worth and you actually say, yes, you know what, I'll live with this.
Exactly.
You know? So part of being the one basically means everyone has a list. You ask any unmarried person, who do you want to marry? They'll tell you, oh, there must be this. There must be this. I've got a list. Like, okay, fantastic. Now, if you met this person, would they say the same thing about you? Would you meet their list? And so we are asking people, would you marry you? You know, are you the person that the person you're looking for is looking for? Wow. You know, and so we challenge them. People spend too much time and energy looking for someone who will meet their needs instead of being someone who will meet other people's needs.
Right.
Okay. Timothy Keller in his book, The Meaning of Marriage, calls it a consumer relationship, where you're only focused on getting the most out of someone at the least expense on your part.
Yeah.
You know, so in that section, we challenge people, how about you present yourself as a valuable candidate? Present yourself as someone who is worthy of that kind of relationship. Build yourself, work on your character, find out your weaknesses, find out your insecurities, your inadequacies, and then present yourself before looking for someone who has all those things instead.
So deep. And it's, you know, one of the things that I always say is, for ladies, I usually tell them when I'm talking to young women, you know, we can't all just be like, you know, I want this and I want that. Like, there's a sense of entitlement that we have in our generation, and it spreads even to our relationships. And the problem is, you take that into your marriage. You start thinking that this person owes. Do you know how lucky you are to have me? Do you know how many people were waiting for? I mean, there's that sense of entitlement that we can actually carry into our relationships. But I always tell young women, you know, if you're looking for a king, you better make sure you're a queen.
Exactly.
You know what I mean?
Yeah,
Like,
yeah.
you need to match up.
Exactly.
Yeah.
And vice versa as well. you
Yeah.
know? So, and it's the same thing for the men as well. You know, I think many men keep talking about, I'm looking for wife material. Okay, wife material. Okay, but what about husband material? You know,
Yeah.
I met a man who once told me, unless I've found the perfect girl, she's everything I ever wanted. She loves the Lord. My parents love her. Everything is fantastic. You know, we are friends. Everything, and I'm like, okay, fantastic, but what's wrong? Go ahead. He says, I'm holding back because, unless I wanted a girl who's like, a 10 out of 10. I had this Kim Kardashian in my head, and he goes on to describe this fantasy of a woman he always wanted.
You know that emoji for face?
Face palm.
That's what I'm doing.
Exactly. Like, and so I asked him, okay, so you want a girl who's a 10 out of 10? I'm like, yeah, but bro, you're like a 2. As I'm basically for the standard with which you set for others, set it for yourself. Challenge yourself. So by the time you step out there, the Swahili say chema cha jiuza kibaya cha jitembeza. That you don't need to self-market, that you stand out automatically in a world where everyone is looking for the one. You are becoming the one.
Right.
Yes.
Ooh. As we get ready to look at some more SMSs, you talk a lot in the book about purity. I want you to talk about sexual purity and lust in a marriage, and why people should pursue purity. Because, nowadays, people are doing all sorts of crazy things. They're just giving of themselves entirely, even before they've made that covenant. Some even people say that they're testing if things are going to work out, like facepalm again.
Yes.
But talk to us about purity as we get to some SMSs.
So my biggest motivation in writing the purity section in the book was out of a personal struggle with pornography and masturbation. I was stuck in it for a very long time, and I saw it affected my relationship before I got married, and I remember it took a lot of energy to really get out of that and just be clean, and I remember the grace of God was really something that was really real to me during that time, and I understood the need to actually walk in sexual purity. We say that because sex is not just any physical activity like washing hands or jumping. It's a very powerful process. It's very powerful. It bonds, just on the physical level, but also psychologically, emotionally, volitionally, and spiritually. You do become one with this person. And so to detach from someone with whom you've actually shared that very intimate act is very, very painful. People may be in denial, but deep down, that is the reality of on the ground. And so we advocate this in the book. We say sex is a gift for marriage. It's not an audition for dating. You don't use sex to evaluate candidates whom you should marry.
Come on.
You actually give it to someone as a gift on your wedding day, saying, you know what, I'm giving my everything to you. When you express yourself sexually outside a commitment to be with someone for the rest of your life, you're basically saying that I want to take something from you without giving you everything of me. And it is defrauding, because what you do is that you end up with emotional hang-ups. You end up pulling someone into your life, and that you're not ready to commit to the very end. And so we say, if you truly love this person, if you truly are committed to this person, demonstrate it by actually preserving the best part of yourself to this person in a commitment where you cannot back out, where you cannot pull out. Okay. And so we advocate to people, telling them, hey, this thing is very powerful. Secondly, you cannot test drive a human being. A human being is not a vehicle. You can test drive a vehicle, but you cannot test drive a human being. A human being has a heart. A vehicle may have an engine that breaks down, but a human has a heart that breaks, period. Right? And so the idea of, I'll just test drive and move on, it's a very carnal mindset. It's a very materialistic, objectifying mindset. When you realize that you can do that with a physical object, but when it comes to a human being, you realize you cannot do that because emotions are involved, our soul is involved. Right? And so you can have, people want to say, but Ernest will use a condom. There's no condom for your soul. Okay. So you can use a condom to protect yourself from the repercussions of that sexual encounter, but ultimately your soul, the most vital part of you, is embedded with that person once you engage with them.
Deep. Some of your questions here. Hey, I'm Sally. I've been married for 2 years. When we're not in good terms with my husband, he cries. What could be the problem?
Wow, he cries.
I mean, and you've talked to a lot of men, obviously. Masculinity is a big discussion for you. When you hear a comment like that, I mean, what does that tell
so that could tell me either the man is very disempowered. He does not know how to respond to tough situations. All right. And we normally teach men, telling them they're normally default ways that men respond to tough situations, which are not right. One, you could blame. Okay, we call that the Adam response. Like, everything's going around me, it's not my fault, it's that other person's fault. You blame, all right? Or you overreact. We call that the Cain response, where you're confronted with something you need to deal with and you throw a tantrum. Or you cover up, you just ignore it, saying, oh, couldn't happen to me. Or you try and just, shift attention to someone else. So that crying could be a man who's overreacting out of an issue he's been confronted with, and maybe he doesn't have the necessary skills or the necessary capacity to deal with it.
Yeah.
Men need fellow men. Men need other men to deal with things. Men need, apart from your wife, a man needs to be linked up with other men who can lift him up when he's going through a tough time. Men don't have that. 2/3 of suicide cases are men.
Wow.
2/3 of depression cases are men. Why? Because men walk it alone.
Yeah.
A man who's crying in his marriage like that needs to be lifted up by other men and be told, hey, what's up?
Yeah.
You need some help. Yeah.
Wow. I need to borrow some time and ask just a few more questions here. So hopefully you'll make your answers very, very brief.
All right.
What if both spouses cheat on each other behind each other's backs? That's from Purity watching us from Mombasa. Maybe I'll just read the questions and then you can answer what you can. So there's spouses cheating on each other. My husband turned violent one night. He really beat me up. We've been having lots of problems in our marriage, infidelity and such. I left him after that night. Please advise because he wants me back. Someone else here says, how many basics do you need for marriage? Love that question. And good morning, I'm Eunice watching from Dandora. I have always had a big expectation of attention when I get married, and this has hindered me from even getting into relationships, I guess from previous experience. How can one move on from past experience that has made, I guess, them have a problem knowing how to keep relationships and what relationships are about? So
Wow.
I don't know how you can sum
A flurry of questions. We'll not answer all of them, to
Yeah,
be honest, but I'll
yeah.
just say perhaps I'll just pick on the one for violence and the
Yeah.
one for about infidelity. I'll say this. First of all, as far as violence is concerned, you must get to a point where you can actually report to the authorities concerning what's happening, and that's the right thing. Secondly, people must subject themselves to other people who can speak into their marriages authoritatively. That man who wants you back must be able to submit himself to other men
Yeah.
and to other people in your life
Yeah.
before you actually just walk back. Okay,
Yeah.
you should walk back, of course, but put in the necessary structures in order for you to have the situation not repeat itself.
And
all
your
right?
safety.
And for your safety, if you've cheated on one another, that's the question of the lady who said cheated on one another, confession must take place, and you must get to a point where you actually invite exterior help, a third party who can take you through a season of counseling, a season of talking through the issues until healing and forgiveness takes place. It takes a while.
Yeah.
Okay, it takes a while. Okay, for the basics, there's several. Grab the book. Go to my website, penstrokes.co.ke. You'll find a way to grab the book. There's lots of wisdom you can get there, and I'm sure it will be of a big blessing to many readers out there.
Ernest Omboy,
Thank
thank you
you.
so much for being here.
Great.
Awesome having you and awesome conversations. If you've missed it, be sure to catch the repeat today at 3 p.m. You can also watch the episode thereafter on the Switch TV website. That's on the Full Circle with Joyce page, and also on our YouTube channel. But with that said, we need to, call it a day. And taking us to the top of the hour, we have the song Niwewe by Guardian Angel featuring Esther Wahome.